Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Marshall, and today, very excited to be joined by Christine LaVopa. Christine, thanks so much for taking some time to spend with us talking today.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. I love talking about health and wellness. It's a passion of mine, so I'm excited to do a deep dive here.
Yeah, and Christine, you are somebody who is really helpful and influential in the health and fitness space, working with people to not only improve the quality of their life, but the way they go about doing that, whether that's adding some movement in, eating certain ways. So I'm really excited to dive into all of those factors for today. So what we'd love to do is get to know you just a little bit better. So Christine, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to help people with the health and wellness.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. I'm going to try to give you the cliff notes because I have a tendency to talk. So I have been training or in the health and wellness space for almost 22 years. I picked up my first dumbbell at 15 years old. I haven't looked back. I've always been active. Being active was something that was instilled upon me since I was a child. Like I was pretty much like coming out of the womb doing like running or something,
Mm-hmm.
I was an overweight kid, but I always loved to move. And, things happen. Softball was my sport. And there was some stuff that was going on at home. And I was a heavier kid. I was like 165. I'm only like 5'2". I'm just trying to give you a frame of reference. Matter what the weight is, but bigger kid.
Ideal softball.
Yeah, they called me Diesel. Let's just put it that way. Power, even though it's heavier, was still pretty fast. Anyway, so, I wanted to up my game, but I was also in 3 different softball leagues. So I was like, going here, traveling, doing high school, all of that stuff. And I started, going to the gym, and I lost a significant amount of weight. I was 15. And then it kind of got into an unhealthy obsession. And, my parents were like, hey, you're not going to be able to go to the gym anymore. Like, you gotta like figure something out here. This is too much. And in my mind, I was like, cool, I just won't eat. So yeah, you can imagine how that went. So I struggled with an eating disorder for probably a good majority of my teenage years and my 20s. I was hospitalized 3 times, tube fed, 75 pounds, living in that moment. And these pivotal moments happen, right? And this story will make sense and come to fruition. But in that moment, at the last time, I was probably like 19 or 20. I said, I don't want to be this way anymore. This is not okay. This is not good. It's literally like slow suicide. You're like killing yourself in the worst way. And I had to get that mindset right. I said, okay, well, if I'm not going to do this, I'm going to teach other people how to live a healthier life. And that was my goal. So I got my degree as a physical education teacher because I love kids. And I got my minor in nutrition because education about nutrition it's so important because there's so many different agendas out there, I'll say, to market specifically towards women. And, so I was like, I'm going to just keep on working at this. So I started doing that and started training, did some teaching here and there. And then I got into competitive bodybuilding. And that was like throwing myself back in the lion's den, eating wise, because it's habits, right? You have these habits, you're restricting, everything is subjective to how you look. So when, you're facing anorexic and bulimia, like that was throwing yourself back in the fire. And I'm like, I'm 34 now. Like it's gone, it's healed. No. So, I'm an all or nothing type of girl and I drive hard. So it was 5 years of trying to go pro, and it was a lot of learning about my body and coming up with these different things, how I can tweak your body. And it's so short-term goal, right? You got 16 weeks to prep and you're going balls to the wall. And that's not sustainable. So my last prep didn't go pro, went to nationals. I met my husband somewhere in here too. And He is in the Navy, so I'm a mil spouse. And I knew that I wanted to have kids. And the last competition, I did a number on my body. I was estrogen levels, an 80-year-old woman. I had no TSH level, so my thyroid wasn't working, thyroid stimulating hormone. My testosterone was gone. My cortisol was triple amount of what it's supposed to be. It was a hormonal hot mess, along with everything else in my life, So I said, okay, I need to pivotal moment again. Let's get this started. And I learned more about women's hormones and how to reposition your body in a way that you can have children again. So I had to gain the weight back. So that was a whole process. And boom, first try, pregnant. So that was like a 9-month learning process and education about learning about hormones, blood sugar, all that stuff. So then got pregnant, had a baby, my husband deployed, and I was back to postpartum. Didn't know what I was doing, had nobody. And in those moments, I was like, wow, this really sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am swimming and I'm trying to keep my head afloat, and I feel like I'm drowning because I was 60 pounds overweight. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to throw myself back in the gym because that's what I knew, right? Just kidding. My son was in the NICU for a month, so we had to deal with all of that. I mean, there was a period of time we didn't know if he was going to make it. So it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I said, okay, this is what you do. And he didn't like the nursery, so I couldn't work out at the gym. So I started documenting everything, and I started working out at home. And I mean, going from a gym rat to working out at home is like complete 180, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do this. This is not attainable. And I was like, no, this is why I'm educated. This is what I have to do. This is what I'm going to teach other women how to do so they can swim instead of sink. So I started documenting everything, and, it took 3 years to kind of go for it because I needed that belief in myself, and COVID happened. And then this industry had to pivot. And wow, I've been COVID training for 3 years. This is perfect. Yep. So we were living in the Middle East, and I launched my business overseas, and it was amazing. We lived in Bahrain. I had help, so it was great. And then I literally got pregnant again in 2 seconds. So the Navy wouldn't let me deliver there, so I had to fly back home, faced another deployment, and now I was taking on clients with a newborn and a 2.5-year-old who was really, really mad at the world because his dad had left again, right? So I said, oh, I can't consciously take anybody on as a client right now. Morally, ethically, I just can't do that. And by the way, I'd just be a terrible coach because I don't even know what I'm doing right now, So I lost all my clients, and that was 2021. Moved, this is our 10th move in 7 years. And then I said, okay, time to pivot again, pivotal moment, and just started climbing up. Got an app, still train women one-on-one. I have men now. And then I got introduced to O2X, and that's how we met. And immediately I was drawn to you because I was like, oh my gosh, this is mental performance. I think it was a little bit crazy, right, Brad? Because I was just like,
yeah.
It's everything I want to know.
It's fun when you strike a nerve and you're just we're on the same wavelength. We like talking about, specific topics or how we can help people. So yeah, it was definitely a mutual experience there.
Yeah. And I was picking your brain. And then I'm just apologizing. I'm so sorry, but this is just so interesting to me. And I'm just a sponge. I love to learn. I love learning about the body, the mind, how it's all connected, because it is. But also how, coaching 70-80% psychology. So you have all the information in the world. You can be literally an encyclopedia, but it doesn't mean you're a good coach because you have to have that psychology behind it, and making a plan. I don't want to say that's the easy part, but setting those goals, executing the plan is your strategy, your habits, but helping somebody along the way to execute and achieve those goals, especially when the mindset is new. So I have my own app now. I'm working with O2X, and that's the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
That was
one of the things I love. Yeah, one of the things I love though is when you get to hear the experiences and you realize the spectrum of things that you've not only gone through, but you've had an opportunity to speak from, hey, I went through this. I've been the person who maybe wasn't happy about my size or a number on the scale. And then I went the complete opposite. And I was so dialed in with my nutrition and what I was doing that it was overwhelming. And then, you know, life happens and you have kids and a family and you move. And all of these different experiences, I think, lead to the fact that I'm really excited to dive into some of these concepts because you can speak from experience and have some really good take-home messages for our listeners about, hey, how do we improve the quality of our life? And how does that maybe shift or change over time? Because it will. It's not going to remain the same definition or look the same for our entire life. And when we can wrap our heads around that, that's where we can start to be like, okay, I can get a grasp on this thing of how do I move better, or eat better, or have a little bit better quality of life.
Right.
And I'm excited to hear about your experiences with that. And so in keeping with sort of that idea, talk to us about when you think about or define this idea of quality of life. I mean, you've had different goals from being an athlete to being a competitive bodybuilder to having a family and running a business.
Yeah.
How do you wrap your head around this idea of quality of life? Like, what does that mean to you?
So, you know, as you said, it changes over time. You know, there's different goals that you have. And one goal was, okay, I want to get a scholarship and go to college because I want to play softball. You know, then that changed. And like, you know, losing that because I was, you know, going through what I was going through, the eating disorder was, it was devastating, you know, because you're training and training for all of this. And then, you know, being a competitor, you have this, you go through like these identities. I don't know how else to, like, especially when you have a type A personality, like you hang on and our brain is so good at making associations. Like it wants to figure out the world and A plus B equals C, but that's not really how it works. Right. So then, you know, being the competitor, I was like, okay, well now I'm going to be, you know, a mom and a military spouse. And I had no idea what that was about, like 0.0. And I'm still learning. Like, so right now it's changed to, I want to have a strong body. I want to be strong for my kids. My kids see me work out literally every day. My daughter can clean and press a 2-pound weight, and that it makes me so happy. Like, you know, but
they are sponges. They will copy and mimic exactly what mom and dad are doing.
Everything. And my son too, he's like, Mommy, let's go to gym class. This is fun. Like I want him to teach them that learning, I mean, not so much learning, but movement is fun. Movement keeps you alive. Motion is lotion. You know what I mean? And, you know, not, I have to exercise to get to a goal. I want to exercise because I want to live longer, you know? And now that I have kids, like I'm that mom that is up there in the playground, doing the hang bars, getting in, I'm like working up a sweat. I'm going up and down the slides, but I want to do that for a long time. I'm 41 now. So why would age matter if I'm keeping my body in good shape, you know? So right now it's like, I want to have muscle, I want to be strong, but I want to move with a purpose. I want to move with an agenda. And I want my kids to see like, hey, like my mom could do this stuff and she's going to do it, you know? And I see these parents on the sideline, no shame, do what you want to do, but I want to be up there with my kid, you know, and not inside my phone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple of things I heard there, when you think about quality of life is one, there is an individual component to like, you want to be strong, you want to feel a certain way. And then there's the community aspect or the family aspect of I want to do that so I can go play with my kids on the playground, so I can live a long, healthy life. I just saw something on social media that spoke to that the other day of it was a dad. And he said, you know, fitness and health for me is going to the trampoline park with my kids and running and jumping on the trampoline with them. And he's like, that's an expression of my health and fitness. And so it sounds like for you, that quality of life right now is building habits, building practices that allow you to feel strong, allow you to feel good about yourself, and then be great for the other people in your life.
Yeah. And my clients too, like you know, you are your calling card, right? You got to practice what you preach. I'm not saying you have to walk around in a shredded 6-pack, be, you know, super defined. Like every time you move, it's like an anatomy project, you know, like I'm saying that you got to move with a purpose, right? So I was at the day and I had my headphones in. I probably look like don't approach me because I'm just focused, you know, and whatever. A lot of people say I'm intimidating. I'm like, no, just talk to me. I smile. I promise, But, I go in there with a purpose anyway. So she asked me, she's like, hey, are you a trainer? You have your own business? And I was like, heck yeah, I do. She's like, I wasn't trying to stalk you, but you struck my eye because your form was on point. And I was like, that is the best compliment that you can ever give, like for you, a trainer, coach, because you're not, and there's no mirrors there, but when you're moving with a purpose instead of just going through the motions, and there's intention there, and people notice that your form is good, like that's awesome. And I was doing mobility stuff, and I was like, so it goes beyond the physical, right? So your body's life. Changing your body's not going to change your life. It's just not. But changing your mindset, habits will. Because that's what go through that New Year's resolution. They want to change their body, but they're not changing their habits. And going on that merry-go-round, until the habits, and it's like, oh yeah, I get to keep my results. I don't just have to give these away in 12 weeks. This is amazing,
Yes. Oh, 100%. And I've picked that up along the way as a coach, where once you put on sort of that role of coach, trainer, helping other people, that the eyes are always on you, whether you want them to be or not. People are watching the way you move. Sometimes they're watching what you eat or drink or this or that. So it's like, you want to be a good role model because, like you said, it is meaningful to live the life that you're trying to help others to live. And then, like you said, showing that, okay, maybe I look a certain way or train a certain way, but there's a whole inner world that you might not have an awareness of, but I want to share that with you, of like, there's a happiness and a satisfaction that comes from aligning my practices or my habits to the person I want to be. And if we can get there, we can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to the question of, you've had a great opportunity to impact a lot of people, pre-COVID and then now after COVID, and what you're working through and how you help other people. So what I'd love to know is, when you think about your role, coach and helping others, what gets you most excited, or what gets you fired up to keep showing up and keep putting in the effort to help others?
It's such a good question, Brad. There's just really so many, but obviously I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because we'll be here for like ever. Really, when people see beyond the physical. So what I mean by that is that, and I'm not a feminist here, but I'm just going to say that as women, we are taught to be smaller. We are taught to not take up as much space. We are taught to not be so loud. We are taught to just, be on a diet for our whole entire life, and I think it's a little bit like when you're a strong, fit person, especially a woman, you're like an anomaly. Like people like, it's interesting, I mean, you saw it happen. Like, it's like, oh, we're at the zoo and here she goes for her prey, like, like what? Like, person too, but, but yeah, so showing women that we can be strong, we can take up space, and we could be strong in much more ways than physical. We could be mentally strong, emotionally strong. My favorite part is having, clients come to me and say, hey, I usually don't eat lunch because I don't give myself time, but I made time today. That's huge. Whether you think, that's huge. Or the part about your program, it saved my marriage because I made boundaries and I made non-negotiables with my health and wellness. Like, you stood up for yourself. That's huge. And the physical, like, that's just the icing on the cake, So that part, like the mindset, the habits, I didn't eat sugar today, like, or, people get in these habits of just snacking on sugar all the time. And it's just this self, fulfilling thing, because you go blood sugar spikes and then down, and then you just want that sugar all the time. But, someone's like, I didn't do it today. I added more protein in. Yeah, because those are the things. I'm not going to coach you for the rest of my life, but if I can teach you how to live a longer life and keep the results you worked for, I did my job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the change that is possible, and that you just slowly drip it in and you start to see the changes. And then sooner or later, it's almost like a light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, I'm seeing changes. And it's not just the mirror or the scale, but it's like, I showed up differently today.
Yes.
And maybe it was the way that you approach a situation with more confidence. Maybe it's that I feel like I've got more energy and more vigor to go do the things I want to do. And you're just like, I knew this was possible. And now that you're seeing it's possible, like you both get that excitement from it. And they're just like, I want more. I want more.
Yes. And it's just, I want to say that whatever body you want, you can attain. You need a plan and you strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So you need some goals, which is your plan. And then it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you have your strategy, which is literally like the blueprint of your whole entire house. If you're a house, your blueprint and your foundation are your habits and your mindset. You cannot build on a crappy foundation. You just won't, because it keeps falling, going back.
Yep.
So, if people like analogies, like that's the best part of coaching, is like learning about all the science. I love it, but that doesn't mean it's everybody else's cup of tea. But Brad, make it that applicable for his life. And the science stuff, some people say, I want to know why, or why is it for me? So that's the cool.
And you're speaking the things that I, really nerd out on over here. And I think you do too. And I've got sort of my, philosophy around it and things I've seen, but I want to hear your perspective on people come to you. Typically it's because they want to change. Yeah. They want to look different. There's something, a goal that they're working towards. How do you go about understanding like, hey, mindset is important. Habits are important. That's what we actually need to get to. But on the surface level, they're like, hey, just tell me what I got to do to move more, eat differently, because I want to hit this. How do you kind of weave it in, or what's your philosophy with working with people to be like, hey, great, we're going to get to movement and nutrition, but there's some other things that we really want to dive into and get a better understanding of first. Do you have something you've come to know or something that you've done to help with that?
Yeah. So, I started coaching, it was called Plan, Learn, Thrive, right? So I plan, right? So I literally take apart their whole entire schedule. It's a little bit tedious, but it takes out excuses, right? So there's habits that don't serve you. If you're giving time as a habit, or I don't have time to do this, that's a habit that doesn't serve you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that doesn't exist because you can. And I literally take that off the table, because I'm like, hey, you got 20 minutes. Are you binging on Netflix, or can we move our body? So you make realistic goals. And when you make realistic goals, they're easier to attain. And that it's just like feeding the fire. You just put a little bit more gas. You hit that milestone. Okay, well, how do we progressively overload that? And it's a training principle too, but progressively overload somebody's habits. And, we look at the roadblocks and obstacles. Like, that's reality. You can't give a busy mom a 3-hour workout plan. That's not reality. You know what I mean? If they're training for a show, that's a different type of reality that you're working towards. But if you're talking to someone that wants to train and prep for life, working out for 3 hours is detrimental and not attainable. So I weave in the stuff that's realistic goals. If someone comes to me, they're like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds in a month. I'm like, oh, well, you can go spend your money somewhere else, because I can't do that for you. Yeah. So I'm like, but we can recomp your body. We can change your mindset in a month. And I can give you 3 habits that you can change in a month. And, even a month is such a short amount of time. I think I don't know, you know the statistic better than I do, like 66 days, consecutive days can make a habit change, but it doesn't mean that you're changing a habit. Doesn't mean you're extinguishing one, though. That's a little harder,
Yep.
So we look at all of that. Yeah. And from a realistic approach, and I do it from a whole body approach. So I have lesson plans. This is what we're doing for stress relief. A lot of my clients are type A people. I know my tribe. So, people, it must be so easy. And I'm like, oh, no, it is not, because we may be in drive, but when we are not in drive, it is like we're falling off the cliff. I need help. Sometimes getting that person back on the track is really hard. Really, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's the beauty of having a coach with not only a depth of knowledge, but a breadth of knowledge, where it's like, hey, I know you're coming to me because of you want to eat better, you want to do this better, but I also have the understanding of, hey, this is a whole picture we're taking. I can see the stress levels are through the roof. I can see that you feel strapped for time, or you don't know where to go with education on some of these things. So you're like, let's go find that area that I can move the needle just enough. We build a new habit. We start to get you moving in a direction that, oh, I'm starting to notice some change. And then you can start to work on maybe some of those areas that they came to you for. But it's knowing what you can help people with. It's knowing how you can help them, and then sticking to your guns there and saying, I'm not going to be the quick fix that's going to give you 15 pounds off, because I know when you lose that 15, if we didn't work on your mindset beforehand, it's not going to be any different then. And it's all going to come back and probably be worse after.
Yeah. And then, getting the 15 pounds off, that quick, short-sighted, goal is really the habits that aren't serving you. That's why, that there's so many detoxes and Optavia and like all of these different diets to try. Like there's so many different things out there, but what is it, what is it working for you? Being on an 800 calorie diet, not going to work for me. I've been paid $4 to be on an 800 calorie diet, but people will do it because they want that short-term success, and they don't realize that you're getting no micronutrients. Your hormones are probably in the garbage. You're not sleeping right. Sleep is the most underrated picture. Losing weight, gaining muscle, losing body fat, and when you lose weight away, like, okay, but you don't want to lose muscle, so you have to like give them these little tidbits of things, and they'll come back and they'll be like, hey, I noticed this one client, she's hilarious, but she goes, I have these jeans and I guess they fit better now, but I'm not going to give you the win. I'm like, that's okay. I'll give you the win.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I'm not there yet. Yeah. And it's like, perfect. That means we've got more to go, which is where we want to be. Like, this is a process and a journey. Yeah. This isn't a destination we're trying to reach.
By the way, she just had a baby too. So there's, your hormones are crazy. And also the fact that she talks so bad about herself. And I go, I'm not going to let you talk about yourself around me. That your mind will always put out stuff, but your body hears that too. So if you're saying, I can't, I'm not, I'm negative, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to keep going,
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing the way our brains speak and think in stories and images. And so when we're trying to process what something we might like to be or how we think we are right now, like there's a story, there is an image, there is a video that's playing, and we're just seeing that. And if you just put that on repeat and on loop all day, what do you think is going to, if you want to use the word manifest, but come through? When all I've seen and all the pictures I see are just beating myself up, we probably aren't going to have a very high self-worth or self-efficacy. And like, I can do hard things and I can do challenging things because we just beat ourselves up all day.
And by the way, like, you only grow by falling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, your healthiness or anything is never a linear upward path, like, ever.
No.
But that's when you start growing. I can tell you I've fallen a lot, but that's when you kind of learn a different way. Or maybe you don't. Maybe it takes you a while to learn, but how do I, if I'm sinking, like, how do I just swim a little bit differently, But it's really hard when you have these associations like, oh, this worked for me like 20 years ago. It can work for me now. Right. Well, your whole entire life has changed in 20 years, So you got to have habits that you can sustain that work for you and your life, not the person down the road. So, or some influencer on social media,
That's been a big thing that we've had conversations on with others on the podcast. And so I'll turn it to you as we think about principles, habits, different things that you do that you feel like are really helpful for your quality of life. Doesn't mean these are the ones everyone should do because they change over time. And there's so much information out there now about things we should be doing, should be taking and whatnot. So I just love to hear from you. When you think about some of like the core pillar habits, behaviors, things you do that you're like, these things are staples for me. They help me to have a higher quality of life and do all the things I want to do.
Yeah.
What comes to mind for you with some of those?
Having a routine. Sure. I have high functioning anxiety, so having a routine and structure is key. When I don't have that, it's really makes me suffer. Moving, it doesn't mean that I have to work out every day, but I have to move. I'm like, you can even ask my husband. He's like, oh, you haven't moved today? Okay, let's go move. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just like,
yep.
And then it's going to sound so ridiculous, but I make my bed every morning. That seems like a check for me. Like, I start my day right, I made my bed, and
spoken like a true military spouse.
Which is crazy because he didn't even make the bed. He's like, I try to get outside at some point. For me, that's one thing that was God sent, because when I started training outside, I can tell you how much better my anxiety was. I was tapped into my parasympathetic. I was not so much in this nervous energy, and I was able to connect and feel more grounded with just life. And started running. I hated running. Like, if you tell a bodybuilder to run, they're like, I'm allergic, you know what I mean? So,
what is cardio?
What?
Walk uphill on a treadmill very slowly for a while. Right. That's all you get to do.
Master, and that has taught me so many things. And I'm glad you brought that up, because, fitness should fit your life. Just because you're weight does not mean you can't be a runner. Just because you do CrossFit doesn't mean that you can't do yoga. It should challenge your body, feed your soul. That's what fitness should be, and that's what's going to keep that long-term longevity, but also nourishing my body. Like, when I have dairy, it increases my anxiety, just what it does, and my gut is all messed up, which is 100% connected to your brain. So doing little things of self-care, getting in those snuggles with my kids, I guess my husband too. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But having that connection with him, because most of our has been away from each other, which is crazy. So yeah, like, getting that stuff in and really helping people, like, just makes my soul like on fire. Like, I love to help people, but I love that to help people in a way that's sustainable and, can teach people, like, hey, if someone texts me, be like, I thought about you and what you would say to me today. And I'm just like, yes.
Sometimes it takes a while, but we can be that little voice that does help people along the way. Yeah. And, some of the things I heard you say there is, when you think about, like, your core practices, they center around movement in some way, shape, or form, this idea of nourishment for soul and body, getting outside, eating good food, and then the connection piece of, whether it's time with kids, time with significant other, coaching other people, like, those three principles sort of guide and influence how you structure your life, because routine is important and you want to be able to get all those in. And if you're missing one of them, it's almost like you took away a leg of a chair, and all of a sudden it's like, I feel out of balance. The anxiety is probably going through the roof. Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm able to be the person that I'd like to be, or I know I can be in that moment.
Yeah. And, I think we talked about this last time too, like, social media is a beast. And every time I move, I lose my in-person clients, so I have to, like, have my everything on social, I'm an in-person person. Like, I always feel like you're at jail trying to touch someone through the glass, and you're trying to give them this energy, but it's like, I
100% know. Yeah, the social media can be a tough and cruel world. I mean, you just love having conversations with people. You love getting in person, but you do realize, like, there's a big wide world out there that of people you could potentially help and impact, and you're trying to figure out what that looks like or how you can get to them. And so it's this, interesting game. Yeah, exactly. How fast until they swipe to the next, influencer or thing on their feed.
Yeah. And it kind of like, you have to do this some soul searching, and, people like, oh, you come off so confident. And I was like, it took me a while to be confident about who I was and, what I've become. I was like, but confidence is not really like how you look, but how you present yourself, but also, like, what is your self-worth when somebody is pretty much telling you, like, you're not worth it. But, that's the confidence. That's the stuff that's like the grit. Like, there's so
Yeah.
people that are stuck behind a screen that get real ballsy and think they can tell you where to stick it 7 ways to Sunday. And then you have to not be petty, but it's really hard not to be petty sometimes.
Oh, I know. It's amazing how challenging that can be. And you speak to this idea of confidence, and, you know, at its sort of core, confidence is this belief in your skills, your talents, your abilities to handle or navigate the moment in front of you. And it takes time and effort and energy to build that. And it's got to be knowing who you are and knowing what that means. And then, you know, you put it to the test, and it's like, yeah, I'm confident in myself, but all of a sudden somebody's typing the message to me and I want to respond because, like, I feel good about myself and I want to let you know that. Next thing you're like, oh, is this, yeah, it's tough.
And I'm, you know me, Brad, I am fiery. So
Yes.
if you put a little fire, you're not going to want to poke the bear. And I just, you know, my mouth can get me in trouble. So it took me time. To walk away.
Yeah.
Like, this is the fight that you want to fight right now. This person has some deep stuff that has nothing to do with you. And they're going to shame you. That was the thing this person was saying. I was shaming moms. Like, it was like, that is so far from the truth, because I am such a cheerleader for any mom, you know? And anyway, so it took I just kindly was like, hey, Merry Christmas to you too. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. There's being from a counseling background, I picked it up in that world. And then it kind of has come through in some of the yoga like world that I've experienced as well. And it's one of these ideas that if something upsets you, it's never the other person's fault. It's never something that is outside of you. There's something going on with you that is coming to the surface that is like, oh, I am pissed off, angry, frustrated, whatever you want to call it. And it's a perspective that is challenging and unique. So when you get like frustrated and angry and upset, it's like, well, this person said this. It's like, okay, that person did something, but that's on you now. How are you thinking about the situation? How are you perceiving it that's causing you to get angry? And some of the Stoic philosophers speak to that, of like really trying hard not to let external people, situations, and moments dictate your internal world. And it is so hard. So hard. But it's a perspective that I've come to appreciate, especially in those moments where like you get really heated and it's like, okay, what's going on here? Why am I getting so heated?
And then you just ride the wave, right? So my son is, Brad, he is tough. Like, it's almost like karmic. Like, I'm like, look in the mirror, you know, and it's really hard not to ride that wave with him, because, you know, I'm not that mom that says to be like, oh, my kid's super smart. Like, no, I'm not that mom, but he's pretty intelligent. He could figure out some situations, and he's so loving, but he's so sensitive and just nails. So, you know, it's really hard not to take that stuff as a parent and be like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't understand, you know. We went through a lot with our family and stuff, because we went through a lot of changes, and in 7 years you moved 10 times, you know, there's 4 movements, like, you know, there's a lot to unpack. And then, you know, Dad has been out of his life for, you know, 2.5 years, and not because of our marriage was salty, it's because that's his job. But how do you explain that to a 2.5-year-old? So, you know, one thing I took with all of this, and this, you know, because I have high functioning anxiety and I'm type A, like, you know, believe in God or not, but God put me in this position to get over my shit. You know what I mean? It's like,
when you come face to face with it and you get to make that decision of, do you want to deal with it or keep running away from it or whatever it might be, like, that's a real moment.
Yeah. And, you know, life's not perfect. You're going to be thrown some balls, and, you know, you can't always be in this perfect condition world. Like, you know, we've lived in hotels, we've moved, I lived at my parents' house. Like, it's been crazy town, you know, but you know, I have to tell you that the thing that kept me afloat was my health and wellness, because I had instilled habits. And I said, I don't care if I'm living at a hotel, I can still move. I don't care living on the other side of the world, I could still move. I don't care be here for 3 weeks and I don't even know where I'm going to be after that. I can still move and keep my habits going, because those are my staples. That's what you live by. You have your mantras, you have your pillars that you said. And when you have that stuff, no one can take that away from you. No one. Because it's your
I absolutely love that. And one of the things that it brings to mind for me, especially when you think about like type A people and when they get frustrated. Yeah. And, you know, all of that goes along with it is there's usually some level of like, they like control, like whether it's their time, their energy, their efforts. And so like, if there's certain habits or behaviors, that's like, hey, if all else fails, I've got this thing that I can go to that it feels like I've got control. And for you, it's like movement or just getting some of that fitness in that can be so helpful for figuring out what's going on and navigating change, because, you know, change for type A people, like you said, I mean, that is like, there's no control there. It's constantly upheaval. And that is really tough.
Really tough. And it's, you know, I don't want to say we're at the mercy of the Navy, but, you know, I will say my husband's very good at what he does. And he, when you are very good at what you do, people recognize that. And you know, you have to kind of, you know, play the game a little bit, you know, and there's politics involved. And with those politics say, okay, well, you got to move in 3 months. Wait, what? Me, I just got here. You know?
Exactly.
You know, it's not, there are some stories out there, like we haven't faced that, but like we were facing a lot of quick changes, and my brain was like, I cannot comprehend what circuit, you know?
Yeah, I just got settled and into my new rhythm, my new routine, felt good about that. And now it's find a new one.
And, you know, so he, you know, my husband is type A, but he doesn't deal with like high functioning anxiety. And like, I can tell you that there's no high functioning when we move. It's just straight. And
fight or flight for as long as it takes to get this move done.
And he's like, I just don't understand. And I'm like, well, you know, you haven't really been around for the moves. You've always been deployed or, you know, in school or doing something else. Like, you're here. He said, well, I'm here now that I can help you. And I'm like, but it doesn't really work that way. So now you have the kids, you know, we have 2 kids to figure out. And, you know, finally it's here. We're settled. And I got a really great advice. And I think it's, you know, something that you can take with you forever. Wherever you go, make it your home. Right. So that means that you're putting up the pictures or you're, you know, making it the way that you'd like. You're going to feel secure with yourself because that's your home, you know, and home can be anywhere. It can be in a hotel room. If you have your core values, you don't need a certain place for it to be home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Totally about health and wellness too.
That's it's funny you say that because it's a book in the mindfulness world by a guy named John Kabat-Zinn, and the title of the book is Wherever You Go, There You Are.
Yeah.
This idea of like our ability to connect and be present with wherever we are, like that's okay. It doesn't have to be a certain way. We start layering on expectations and all these projections, and the next thing you know, stress and anxiety and like feeling like things aren't unfolding the way we want them to come up, and that can be tough. So it's like, hey, wherever we are, that's where our family is. That's where home is. Like, that is okay. It could be a hotel room, could be a house, could be across the world. That's where we are.
We had some of the best times in hotel rooms. I'll kid you not. Like, we would literally get up, walk to Walmart. Like, that was our thing, you know, and there's some interesting people to see at Walmart. So
yes, there are. Yeah.
And I love to people watch. Like, I'm just like, oh, this is great. It's like, give me the popcorn, you know? So
yeah.
They actually have people at Walmart. It's like a website you could go watch people.
Really? I might have to figure out where that is to go check that out. That sounds funny.
Also, one of the books that, you know, talking about mindset and to keep on topic, that completely changed my life and changed my trajectory of how I coach my clients. And it's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And basically, you know, especially for a type A person, we have habits that don't serve us. And we continue to do these habits because in some way, shape, or form, they fulfilled an outcome sometime in our life, or they just are self-fulfilling prophecies that we're not going to amount to whatever we want to be. And, you know, the beginning's a little bit like, you know, for someone that's black and white, quantum physics is like really hard to get your mind around. You know? What, you know? And it made I stuck with it. You know, I was about to see later, you know, and it basically tells you like all of these energies that you believe in, and these habits that you formed about yourself and these self-fulfilling prophecies, they're not real. what can be real is your biggest potential of not being the person that you are because it's holding you back. And that is 100% linked to your health and wellness.
Yeah, that is fascinating because we are so tied to what we know or what we've experienced. And that's what makes up our belief system. That's what makes up what we think about ourselves. So if that's all we've ever known, this whole world that we don't know what it could be or what we could feel like or what we could strive towards, it just seems so far off that it's like, how do I even access that? How do I even get there?
Yeah. And it's like, quantum physics is not for everybody, but it does make sense if you are thinking about habits and associations, and, you have to unpack your stuff as a kid. Just a little habit, like, and everybody does this, finish everything on your plate. Okay, well, you're pretty much telling your kid to not recognize hunger cues when you're full. I don't want to. So you're taking that, control away from them. And then they build these habits around, I have to bring everything on my plate. And then by the way, when they're a mom, they're also the seagull, right? They're picking stuff here. They're, eating their own plate because they have to make sure everything's fit. And you're like, wait, I did that when I was like 4. Okay. You're unpacking 41.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of this idea of habits, we had a chance to talk about the ones that are, staples and really meaningful for you. You get a chance to coach and work with a lot of different people. So are there certain practices that you have found to be really helpful for people? And they can be in any realm here, but I know everybody's different. Everybody's unique. But when you think about maybe some of the trends, some of the patterns, are there certain things that stand out to you when you're like, hey, I want to elevate the quality of life of the clients that I get a chance to work with? What are maybe some of the go-to practices or principles or things that you try and help guide or influence them on?
So I always try to break it down into digestible pieces, right? You'll have people, this is what I want to do a year from now. Okay. So we break that down into digestible pieces and habits. So it's phases. So the first phase is we're going to pick 3 habits. We're going to do 1 wellness, 1 nutrition, and 1 movement habit. And those are your phases of, how it's triangular. Without your health and wellness, you can't have the fitness. Without your fitness, nutrition, you can have your wellness, but like that everything has to be synchronized, So like sleep. A lot of people don't sleep, and that is your, number one to whatever you want to do in life, you need to sleep.
Right.
And I'll be like, okay, well, let's change your sleeping habit. Let's, do some yoga nidra before you go to bed. For people that are type A, they don't really like to meditate because they're like, this doesn't make, I could be doing things right now, but not trying to figure out why I should be in Fiji, so.
I love that example because that is so true. Anytime you sit down and meditate, and as someone who's been, teaching and guiding meditation for years, it's just like, I'm doing it wrong. I'm thinking about Fiji. I'm thinking about everything else. I'm like, good. That's what you should be doing right now. And you're aware of it. So we're winning, but I love what you said. Type A's are like, no, I'm not doing it right. I got to win at this thing.
Right. And when you don't have an infinite, winning, I guess that's up.
Yeah.
No, and you just like throw up all these red flags,
Yeah.
But
I love it. So we've got the triangle, we've got sleep there, and it sounds like that's sort of a pillar focus, and then there's more that builds on it.
Yeah. So then, we'll do the yoga nidra, which will also help with stress management, and something that you can build into your practice because you can literally do it right before you go to bed. So, I don't have time. Okay, well, you're going to bed, so you can do it for 5 minutes. Okay. You know what I mean? So, and then just make that a habit. Okay, well, our habit is that we're going to do this 3 times this week. And then our nutrition. Okay, well, how are we nourishing our body and fueling our body for our goals? Nutrition is just that. It is energy because a calorie is a unit of energy. And you have to take that stuff out, right? So how are we going to take the stuff of, I can't eat that because it's bad or it's going to make, or all of this stuff. It's literally just energy. So we have to unpack our stuff there. But that comes with time. And, what are we going to do differently? Okay, well, I'm not going to pick the sugary food, but I'm going to stack it with, my carbohydrates with a protein, a fat, and a fiber, because that's going to bring down my blood sugar and make it level. Do you have to really science behind it? No, but you're going to know that you're not going to crash and you're going to have more energy. win, you know?
Yeah.
And then movement. Okay, well, most of my clients are like, I don't want to weight train. I'm just going to do bar. I'm like, girl, give me 5 minutes. I'll show you what's up, you know? So, but, you know, and I'm just like, hey, you know, let's move the purpose. Let's take 30 minutes, 3 times a week, lower body, upper body, and we'll do a cardio or full body type of movement.
Yep.
And that's how we break it down. And it just really depends on where you are. Like, obviously you can tinker that to how advanced, you know, beginning there, intermediate, beginning. And that's how I started. So those are things.
Yeah. I love how simple and how easy that is to implement, of like, hey, if I could just figure out one thing for my wellness, one thing for movement, one thing for my nourishment, like, that feels like it's something I can do, something I can work on, and something that, like you said, you can flex it. So for somebody who's just starting off, maybe we make it pretty simple. And for somebody who maybe is dialed in and is really trying to, you know, improve or enhance that, it's like, okay, we can get as in the weeds as you'd like to, but it's these simple 3 things, and let's make it into habit, and let's make it stackable. And then we can probably notice some changes. Because like you said, they might not care about the science, but they care how they feel.
Right.
And they want to feel a certain way. And so it sounds like it's a really simple, effective tool to get them there.
Yeah. And, you know, and then also like your nutrition, what are you eating? How does it make you feel? If you feel bloated, lethargic most of the day, your body's telling you you're inflamed. You're ignoring the signs, but your body's process this stuff because it's bringing down your energy and you're bloated, which is a first sign of inflammation. So I have them recognize when they eat certain things, how do they feel?
Yeah. That's such a cool idea that I think is becoming maybe more mainstream, but just tuning in and being present with, like, what are you experiencing right now? Like, you just did a workout. Do you feel good? Do you not feel good? You just ate something. Do you feel good? Do you not feel good? And people don't tune in. They just are like moving from one thing to the next so fast that we forget to actually, hey, how does this make me feel? Is this serving me? Is it helping me move closer to the way I'd like to be? I'm just flying through life without even recognizing that. So taking some time to encourage your clients to stop, be aware. What do you notice? Like, that can be a huge win in and of itself.
Yeah. And when you are type A, you are just literally in sympathetic drive all of the time. And it's funny because we seek balance. We want balance. I need balance. I need balance. And you're like, wait, this is scary. We're not working towards something. Like, this is not no good. I'm like, yeah, but you are. Maintaining is a goal. Like, a really hard goal, but it's a goal, you know? So, I think when you take that into perspective, and also like having fun with your food, like, you don't have to eat broccoli and chicken to get your results. You know, you cook a meal for your whole entire family that you can eat too. And it's so healthy. And by the way, like, it'll help with your kids' blood sugar too. I mean, maybe they won't be so, you know, having tantrums and moody, you know? So it's just little tiny nuggets of information that are digestible. And then you just build on top of that.
Yeah. And one of the things I like that you said there too, is you can make it into a family habit or a family structure. That's just the way we do things. Like, we move, we eat a certain way, and it helps all of our family to have better connections, have better quality of life. I mean, like you said, maybe we're a little bit easier on each other, and we're not running with the ebbs and flows of what we've eaten and how that's impacting how much energy we have or how easy we fly off the handle or whatnot. So incorporating that into the family structure, really critical, especially I imagine with a lot of the people that you work with.
Yeah. And I mean, they're mostly busy moms. I have some dads in there. The fathers that I work with are pretty type A, very structured human beings. And it's almost like they are working towards a different goal. So I have one client, I'm reversing him, right? So he conditioned himself so well that it was starting to create harm. And I was like, oh, been there, I can help you, you know? So, you know, so you have like these pivotal moments in your life. You're like, yeah, this makes sense. This was supposed to happen. To help this person with this. So what I managed to do was, you know, take some of the fear out of the food, some of those associations that don't serve us anymore, guide him, talk him through it, which is, you know, as a type A person, you have to have different language, and not accusations. It's more of a nurture, if you will. And, you know, we were able to increase his calories by about 700 to 800 and then keep his body fat the same, take away his metcons significantly, better sleep, better energy, putting on muscle, and gain no fat.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's a science behind it, but it's doable.
And that's what's a beautiful thing is they don't always have to know the science, but once they've gained your trust,
Yes.
and you can use all the expertise that you have to help move them closer to where they'd like to be.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready, you educate them and, hey, here's why I increase your calories. Here's maybe why we decrease some of your metcons. And now they're like, oh, that makes sense. Sometimes they have to experience it before they're ready to listen or be educated on it. And I think that's an awesome approach to work with people.
Yeah. And like, it's really hard to be a good listener. It's really hard to be a good listener. And, that's one of the things I tried to be more mindful about is, oh, you can't just say what you want to say all the time. You just have to listen. But when I do presentations, I always say, like, what's your 3 main roadblocks? And as soon as they're beating them off, I'm coming up with 5 solutions in my head. That's just how I think.
Yeah.
I'm a fixer.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do So, having someone to guide you through their hard stuff, that trust has to be there. Because having someone that's in control of your food, your body, you're taking pictures for this person, that is such very vulnerable, eye-opening for anybody.
Yeah.
And, without that trust factor, and I tell them, I'm like, hey, if you don't feel this vibe, then, no hard feelings. Like, I'm not for everybody. And that's okay.
Right.
But I want to see you succeed. So if you can succeed, maybe our message might be the same, but maybe this person's delivery is different. You get it better. That's okay. That's why collaborations. I love doing collaborations with other people in the, in the health and wellness space as professionals, because my message and your message could be very much the same, but the way that you explain it is like, boom, the light bulb. Like, why did I think of that?
It's the funniest thing, I feel like, as a coach, when maybe you've had a chance to work with somebody or interact with them, and they decide to work with somebody else, or a different coach gives them just like one little thing, and they're like, the light bulb clicks, and they're like, oh, it totally makes sense now. And in your head, you're like, I've been telling you that for however long, and like the way they said it just made sense. And it's like, perfect. I'm glad you got there, even if it wasn't through me, because like that's the main goal. Is like, we want to lift and elevate the quality of life for everybody. It's like we don't hoard all the secrets of like only my process and my system works. Like, we all have access to the information and the insight. It's like you said, it's about listening and then being able to help the people who maybe resonate or vibe with you best, and realizing like, hey, there's a certain population that's going to do that. And then there's a certain population that might be great for someone else. And we want to point them in the right direction, wherever that might be.
Right. And, when you have a coaching business, it's sometimes hard to not think that the more clients means you're a better coach. Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of get past that pride and ego thing, and realize that like, okay, maybe if I have 30 clients, but I'm helping 30 people and I'm giving them my full energy. Is it better? 100 and you give like 5% energy,
right?
Like, it's hard to kind of figure out like that spectrum of it. But so as a coach, you're coaching other people, but you're also going through traumas and experiences that you've had.
There's a constant imposter syndrome. There's constant doubts and insecurities of like, I think I know what I'm doing. I think I'm doing this right, but I don't know. And this person just left me and went somewhere else. And I think that shows I'm not really who I say I am. And it's spicy.
Spicy is a really good word for that, because it's, you just go through these things and you're like, am I a fraud? Do people think I'm a fraud? Yeah. And then someone will trigger you and you're like, I'm a total fraud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I need to change professions. I'm in the wrong business. This isn't for me.
Oh, Brad, I can't even tell you how many times I've said that in the last 5 years. I'm like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe, I mean, you can ask me. No. Like, he's going to be like, we're on this merry-go-round again. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've heard this one before.
Yeah. And it's like, for my husband, he knew he wanted to be in the Navy since he was 11 years old. And you don't find that a lot.
No.
Anybody. People change all the time. I mean, That's why, you change your major 15 times because you figure out what you want to do. Like he knew he was 11.
Yeah.
He wanted to be captain. He wanted to drive ships and he wanted to be in charge. And that's what he's doing. So to have someone with that much leadership and ambition is pretty cool to watch. So it's like, whew, okay. I don't want to tell you across them too much, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And it's funny because I got, one more question for you here. And what you just spoke about, that story really encapsulates what we've talked about here today of like, there's change, there's different ebbs and flows to our lives. Some people might have a pretty good sense in the direction of where they want to go and they're maintaining that. And others, it's always in flux. And one of the ideas that we have is this idea of purpose and principles and practices. If you know your purpose, your why, that can help guide some principles, those big governing bodies that influence the way we think and make decisions. And then eventually it leads down to practices. What are those habits and the things that show up in my day to day? So I'm curious for you, looking at it through the lens of principles or standards or sort of the way you orient your life or think about situations, people, etc. Does something stand out to you? Some people think of it as almost like their core values or like just the really big pillars in their life. Does anything stand out to you that for you right now guides and influences the way that you interact with others or think about the world?
Yeah. So, I mean, right off the bat, I would say my family, like that's value. Like the first time you meet me, I will tell you everything about my children. You're gonna be like, if I was a stalker, your kids would be found. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we get it. You're a mom. Okay. So that drives me, like they're like my whole entire heart. I'm a very, very passionate person, very emotional person. And my husband is not so emotional. So we kind of like, balance each other. So a lot of that drives me. Like, how would I want my kids to think of themselves as a parent? Are they going to fear me? Are they going to respect me? Are they going to come to me with their problems? Or are they just going to hide them under the rug? Do they feel confident enough to be their own person? And, I see that in both of my children. Like, they're very, very confident little humans. And sometimes it's like, and then, and then sometimes it's like, yes, like, this is what I want them to feel like they can do anything they want to do in life. As long as you're not hurting other people, as long as you're sticking true to yourself and being who you are. Right. And I think that that's with your health and wellness, like the staple of like, you have to figure out what works for you. You cannot figure out what works for Karen or for Brad or for somebody else, or even like, when you start something with your significant other, your partner, and they lose weight faster and you're like, nah, I'm just going to give up, so you have to figure out what works for you and learn about your body as much and as often as you can. And that comes down to the little things every day of how do I feel today? And, because I got sleep, didn't get sleep? Do I have a little bit more anxiety? Be mindful of what signs your body is giving you, because it's going to tell you a lot. Our body is very complex and very, very good at giving us signs. We just like a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that, because the things I heard you say there, one, sort of the cornerstone piece is family and what that means from a connection standpoint, from a role model standpoint, for a guiding and influencing standpoint. And then the two other pieces there, one, almost this idea of individuality of like, everybody's different and that's okay. And we want to really leverage that. Everyone should have a different expression of what fitness and movement and nutrition looks like for them. And a final piece being this idea of awareness. Hey, can you tune in and just be present and aware of what's going on for you, whether it's the emotions, whether it's what you're eating, the way you're moving. So family and individuality and awareness sound like some really strong principles that guide how you coach people, how you interact with other people, and how you kind of orient your own life, which is awesome. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's great how you like nailed that on the head. 'Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, have a laundry list going. And you're like, nope, boop, boop, boop.
That's the old counseling background coming out there, just take everything and see if we can bring it down and put it into some clean words for everybody. So
I say that's why I love, talking to you and talking to other professionals, because, there's different nuggets of information that you're going to get and pick up, and it's timing, right? About how open you are to that. How are you opening your ears, your heart, and accepting, okay, this is where I am, this is where I need to be, but I can only get better with better people. If you're around sick and that are bringing you down, you're not going to go anywhere. And when you're around better people that have that energy, your vibe is going to be so high. Yeah,
it is one of those challenging, but also situations which you can make a difference is your environment. Who's around you. Sometimes you can't always change that, but when you can, it makes such a huge difference. And the information you're ingesting, who you're surrounding yourself with, the way they talk, that all makes a big difference.
Yeah. And so I love that you mentioned visualization, powerful self-talk with positive visualization is huge for type A people. Like you gotta act like you were there before you get there. I can tell you every single form of body that you can think of. And when I wanted to change something, I had a plan, I had a strategy, and I had a vision of what that would take. And sometimes it wasn't always a good way, but you learn about yourself, and that's the key to health and wellness, is that you have to be open to learning, and you have to accept that there are things that you can change that are going to help your body be better and get to the goals that you want to achieve.
Oh, I think that's such a great way to wrap things up, of whether you're somebody on the track of improving your health and wellness, whether you're a coach who's trying to continue helping others and their health and wellness journey. There's always learning to be had. There's always new ways to listen, learn, and try and gain a better perspective from others. So with that, Christine, I want to say thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. This conversation was awesome. Yeah. I enjoy every time we get a chance to catch up and hear what each other's up to.
Yeah, it sounds good. Thanks so much, Troy. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
One more thing I wanted to ask too. So if anyone's interested in connecting or hearing more about you or seeing what you're up to, maybe wanting to get in with coaching with you, where's the best place to catch up with you?
So you can go to my website, which is LaVopaCoaching.com. So www.ChristineLaVopaCoaching.com. You can see me on Instagram, so Christine_LaVopa, Facebook, on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the things, right?
All the socials.
It's mind numbing, but mainly I'm on, like, my main platform is Instagram, and you will see that I am so goofy and I do not take myself seriously at all. And, but with nuggets of information that I think are valuable, I hope. But,
I love it. I find them to be quite funny and humorous, even though I'm not even a mom and some of them I don't relate to. I still laugh at them. I'm like, this is great.
But also, like, throw in the fitness aspect.
Exactly.
That stuff. But, if you can't laugh, like, laughing is like, and I'm very self-deprecating. So if you want a good laugh, go over there. You'll see my kids. They're all over the place. My husband too. So it's just a family affair, but your health and wellness is yours and yours only. You can't be afraid of putting in the hard work, because no one's going to put the work in for you. And that work is going to be yours for the rest of your life. So.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Christine. Look forward to seeing you again soon.